Hey folks, we wanted to start off this year 2021 with one of the trades and one of the trends that we think is going to have a lot of room to the upside here in 2021, at least as we can tell from this positioning here right now, and that is in silver. And so we're going to go through and give you three different ways that anyone from a retail investor to an options trader to an institutional investor could take advantage of what we think is a potentially huge run in the price of silver in 2021. So in order to give you some perspective, here's just a very simple chart looking at the silver futures chart, and this is a monthly incremental chart. So each increments chart, so each bar here is 1 month, and you can see this data stretches all the way back into the mid 90s. So, and this is purely from a technical perspective. We could talk about all the reasons why silver could see a demand from industrial output, battery demand. There's a lot of stuff we could get into here from a fundamental perspective. I think optically, we're going to try to make you see that a lot of the fundamental positive data that we think is going to come is starting to be priced in slowly but surely, and likely in a trending way in the metal already. So here is your monthly chart, and what you can see is we basically, after the big rally into the tops of 2011, we then basically saw a crash into 2016, and then really we kind of just trotted sideways. We've now seen over the past number of months, particularly starting in early summer 2020, starting to see a big rally. Now, over the past few months, things have consolidated, but there's still a lot more room to go. We think ultimately silver here in terms of the futures could easily get back into the mid to high 30s, probably potentially quite a bit beyond, to be honest with you. But let's take it here sort of one point at a time, just so you, in terms of percentage terms, if we just were to go into the mid 30s, let's say, that's about a 30% move. If it sees the highest 30s, we're talking about a 40% move. That's a huge move for these kinds of things. And again, it could go much, much higher. But that would be one simple way for an institutional investor maybe to just be long some futures and roll those out. Now, to give you some perspective, and before we look at a more retail way of doing this, if you look at silver and you divide it by gold, and I'm going to use ETFs here for simplicity purposes, we just recently, just a few months ago, reached a relative low in silver versus gold. We think this chart here is coiling up, so the relative attractiveness of silver versus gold continues to increase, and we think this is ultimately going to lead to a significant relative outperformance in silver. It's just a matter for the macroeconomics to line up, and we think at some point, certainly in the sort of second to third quarter, not certainly, but that's what we're thinking right now, in the second to third quarter of 2021, that will come to fruition, where we could really start to see upside in silver and potentially gold there as well. Getting into a more retail way of doing this, if you are a retail investor, you could make it simple and just buy the SLV ETF. The SLV also has decent options liquidity, so there's various different ways of doing it there, just buying some at the money or out of the money call options expiring, let's say in June, call spreads. Again, there's many different ways of doing that, but the point is to give this trade time, right? It's not one of those things that has to give you an immediate gratification payoff for the next day or two, but really one that is likely to unfold as the macroeconomic forces start to sway more and more in the way of favorably towards silver. So the SLV ETF here, again, that would be idea number 2 of how to do this, I guess, and 2 and 3, because you can also do it with options. Now, if you want to lever this without options, one of the things you can do is you can use something called an ETF that's focusing around more of the junior sort of miners. These are now companies as opposed to the actual metal, and so silver mining companies. And this chart here, from a purely, again, this is the optics. This to me is slowly but surely starting to bake in all the good news that we think is coming in the fundamental stuff. But the optics here are very bullish. So if you wanted to get leverage, so this is, I guess, the 4th way of doing this. If you want to gain leverage but not really use options, and this could also be something for an institutional investor, the SILJ ETF. SILJ, you can see in the top left-hand corner here, SILJ is the ETF. We think this easily can run into the low 20s, and ultimately wouldn't be surprised if we see this in the high 20s and even low 30s. So a lot of potential run there. Again, this is not an immediate gratification trade, but really something we see playing out over the foreseeable future through the lens of the next few quarters and quite frankly quite a bit beyond. So anyway, folks, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions or comments, let us know, and have a good start to 2021. Take care.